Ever wondered why some people walk into a room and command it without raising their voice, without begging for attention, just presence alone? Why their words linger long after they've left the conversation? Why people follow them, not out of fear, but out of faith? Influence is not about manipulation. It's not trickery. True influence is an art, backed by psychology, forged by intention, and refined through character. Because persuasion, real persuasion, isn't about getting someone to agree with you. It's about awakening a part of them that already knows the truth and trusting you enough to act on it. And here's the truth that will change your life. Influence isn't something you chase. It's something you become. Think of the great persuaders: Lincoln, whose quiet resolve stirred a divided nation; Martin Luther King Jr., whose voice carved justice into the heart of history; Elon Musk, who sells vision before product; Disney, who sold dreams before rides; Napoleon Hill, who sold belief before books. What did they all have in common? They understood one simple thing. Human behavior isn't rational, it's emotional. 95% of our decisions happen in the subconscious. That means persuasion doesn't begin with logic. It begins with emotion, with trust, with connection. So if you want to become a powerful leader, a magnetic communicator, a visionary force that moves people, you must master the inner mechanics of the human mind. Let's start with the first law, the power of reciprocity. Give first, ask second. In every ancient civilization, from the tribes of Africa to the empires of Rome, the unspoken code of reciprocity governed all relationships. You give to me, I give to you. It's wired into our psychology. We're biologically programmed to repay kindness. When you give genuinely, with no strings attached, you trigger a psychological debt in others. They want to return the favor, not because they have to, but because they feel compelled to. Robert Cialdini proved this in countless studies. One famous experiment: a waiter who gave diners a mint with the check saw tips increase by 3%. Add 2 mints, tips jump to 14%. Add a personalized touch, 20%. 1 mint, 1 gesture. That's influence. So ask yourself, what are you offering the world before you ask for something back? Do you bring value, inspiration, clarity, or do you merely take space? To lead is to serve, and to persuade is to give more than you ask. The principle of scarcity. Now, let's talk about one of the oldest levers of persuasion. Scarcity. People don't value what's abundant. They value what's rare. Diamonds? Scarce. Front row seats? Scarce. Time with someone truly present? Scarce. You want people to act? Make them feel the cost of inaction. When something is limited, our brain interprets it as more valuable. It's survival instinct, deep, ancient, primal. That's why sales go wild during countdowns. Why only 3 left in stock converts. Why once in a lifetime feels irresistible. But listen, scarcity must be real. You can't fake urgency. Authenticity is the backbone of sustainable influence. You must become the kind of leader whose time, attention, and energy are rare because they are deeply purposeful, not because they are withheld for manipulation. You must live in such alignment that people feel the weight of missing their moment with you. The importance of social proof. Next, the invisible crowd in every room. Social proof is the unspoken influence of others. It's the 5-star reviews you check before buying. The laughter of a crowd that cues you to laugh too. The confidence in a speaker that pulls you in. Not because of what they say, but because everyone else is already listening. You see, people follow people, but they trust movements. Abraham Lincoln was just a lawyer until a movement formed around his vision. Oprah was just a talk show host until a tribe rallied around her authenticity. Tesla was just a name until the world watched Elon Musk defy what was normal. If you want to build influence, build a ripple, share wins, Share transformation. Share stories of others impacted. Not to boast, but to reflect what's possible when your vision becomes contagious. Social proof is not bragging. It's illustrating the power of belief in motion. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need a platform to persuade. You need understanding, emotional intelligence, authentic intent. The science of influence is not about control. It's about connection. And connection begins not with your mouth, but with your mind and your heart. So the next time you speak, the next time you lead, the next time you feel the urge to inspire, pause, breathe, and ask, am I connecting or am I convincing? Because the ones who move mountains never shout. They simply align their voice with truth, and the world listens. True influence begins not when you speak, but when you see. When you see the person across from you, not as an obstacle, not as a transaction, but as a universe of untold fears, dreams, insecurities, and potential. When you stop trying to impress and start trying to understand. Because here's a secret. People don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. And the ones who listen deepest lead furthest. Reciprocity and the gift economy. You've already learned that giving creates influence. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about the gift economy, an ancient practice older than currency itself. In tribes across the world, people traded value without keeping score. A fish for firewood, a story for shelter. The unspoken rule: if you receive, you give, eventually. But not because you owe, because you're part of something. This is the invisible power of contribution. When you give not for leverage, not for likes, but from soul-level generosity, you create what the Stoics called eunoia, goodwill that returns tenfold. Modern influence isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about flooding the field with so much value that people naturally want to follow your lead. Give ideas, give clarity, give belief. Become a well people draw from, and never let it run dry. Building rapport through mirroring and active listening. Now, let's unlock one of the most underrated superpowers of persuasion. Listening, not passive listening, not waiting to speak. Real listening, full body, full presence listening. Studies show that people who feel heard are 60% more likely to trust, follow, and act. Not because you solve their problems, but because you held space for their truth. But there's more. Mirroring, subtle matching of body language, tone, and energy creates unconscious comfort. It's biological. We trust what feels familiar. We lean toward what feels like us. When you mirror someone, not to manipulate, but to connect, you send a signal. I see you. I hear you. I'm with you. Try it. Match their tone. Reflect their posture. Let their tempo guide your pace. Not mimicry, attunement. And when you respond, do it with clarity and care. Use their language. Echo their words. Reflect back the heart of what they said. It sounds simple, but it's rare. And what's rare is powerful. Understanding the role of authority. Now, let's talk about authority. Not the rigid kind, not the title kind, but the kind that makes people lean in when you speak. Perceived authority shapes perception faster than facts. A white coat, a firm voice, a confident posture. These subtle cues trigger trust. Why? Because the brain is wired to seek certainty. In uncertainty, we follow those who seem sure, even if we don't understand why. In 1961, psychologist Stanley Milgram ran a chilling experiment. People administered electric shocks to others, just because a man in a lab coat told them to. Authority bypassed reason. Now, don't use this to manipulate. Use it to understand. The more certainty you radiate, the more influence you hold. So ask yourself, what energy do I bring into a room? Do I speak with clarity? Do I stand behind my words like a mountain stands against the wind? Because real authority doesn't shout. It resonates. And the most powerful authority is internal. When you're congruent, when your words, beliefs, and actions align, people feel it, and they trust it, because you've done the work to trust yourself. The psychology of influence is not a game. It's a responsibility. To hold influence is to hold fire in your hands. You can warm a home or burn it down. So wield it wisely. Learn the laws, honor the science, and lead from something deeper than strategy. Lead from truth, because the world doesn't need more noise. It doesn't need more marketing. It doesn't need more leaders chasing applause. It needs more people willing to listen, to give, to understand, and to stand for something real. People like you. Influence doesn't begin with what you say. It begins with how you frame what you say. Because the same truth, spoken in a whisper or a roar, received through a story or a sermon, can either fall flat or ignite a revolution. Words are instruments, but it's the conductor, your intention, your delivery, your timing, that shapes the music. And if you want to lead in this world, not just talk, but truly transform, you must master the art of communication. Let's begin. Framing your message. Framing isn't about twisting facts. It's about putting truth in a form people can feel. You see, people don't react to reality. They react to their interpretation of reality. So when you communicate, ask yourself, am I speaking in a language they understand, or one they'll ignore? A leader knows how to frame their message to fit the lens of the listener. You don't change the truth. You change the angle. You don't say, you'll lose money. You say, you'll miss the opportunity. You don't say, this is hard. You say, this will grow you. Look at great communicators. Steve Jobs didn't talk about storage. He said, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't say, I demand civil rights. He said, I have a dream. Change the frame, and you change the future. Storytelling for influence. Now, let's talk about the most ancient form of influence. Storytelling. Before there were books, before speeches, before scripts like this, there were fires. And around those fires, people told stories. Stories of triumph, of tragedy, of transformation. Because stories bypass the mind and go straight to the soul. Your brain is wired for narrative. When you hear a story, you feel it. You remember it. You internalize it as if it happened to you. That's why the most influential leaders don't just deliver facts. They deliver emotional truth wrapped in experience. They tell you about the time they failed, the moment they almost gave up, the lesson they bled for. Because people don't follow perfection. They follow relatability. So if you want to influence, don't just teach. Tell. Tell the story of the woman who rose from bankruptcy to build an empire. The man who beat addiction and became a mentor. The kid who never believed he was enough until someone believed in him. Make it vivid. Make it personal. Make it real. And remember, the story isn't about you. It's about what your story unlocks in them. The power of questions. And now we arrive at the hidden force behind every great conversation. Questions. Questions are the keys that unlock minds. Not answers. Questions. Great leaders ask more than they tell. Because questions do something powerful. They turn listeners into participants. When you ask, what do you really want? You force someone to stop running and start reflecting. When you ask, what's holding you back? You open a door they were afraid to even knock on. When you ask, what would your life look like if you didn't give up? You plant a seed of vision. Socrates taught through questions. Jesus taught through questions. Every master influencer in history knew. The mind opens through inquiry. So stop trying to be the person with all the answers. Be the one with the right questions. Because a question doesn't just shift a moment, it shifts a mindset. Let's bring it together. If you want to master communication, if you want to persuade not by pressure, but by presence, then frame your message like a sculptor chisels stone, carefully, with intention. Tell stories that bypass resistance and light the fire of belief, and ask questions that make people stop and look inward, because influence is not control. It's awakening. You're not here to push people. You're here to show them what's already inside of them and guide them to claim it. That's what great communicators do. That's what unforgettable leaders do. And that's what you can do starting now. Leadership isn't granted by position. It's earned through presence. You can have a title and still not lead. You can have followers and still not influence. You can have a voice and still not be heard. Because the most influential leaders don't just speak. They feel. They see what others miss. They hear what others ignore. And they act. Not from ego, but from emotional intelligence. Cultivating emotional intelligence. Let's be clear. Intellect will get you through the door, but emotional intelligence will keep you in the room. It's the ability to manage your own emotions in chaos and recognize the silent cries in others during calm. EQ is the leader's secret weapon. When Edison failed 10,000 times, it wasn't IQ that carried him. It was emotional mastery. When Nelson Mandela forgave his oppressors, it wasn't logic. It was EQ at work. To influence others, you must first lead yourself. You must learn to pause before reacting, to speak when silence wounds, and stay silent when words would do harm, to choose empathy over ego, patience over pride, understanding over dominance, because people don't follow perfection. They follow those who understand their pain and still offer a hand. You want to lead? Learn to read the room without words. Learn to sense tension, to hear what's not being said, and to validate the unspoken. That's where real power lives, not in force, but in feeling. Building strong relationships. Now, let's talk about the foundation of all lasting influence. Relationships. Not followers, not fans, not connections. Relationships. The bridge between trust and transformation is built, brick by brick, in the quiet moments. Consistency, honesty, presence. Henry Ford didn't build an empire alone. He surrounded himself with minds that challenged his own. Carnegie credited every success to his network of thinkers. Oprah credits her rise to the people who held her accountable to her greatness. You don't influence from a pedestal. You influence through partnership. So ask yourself, who do I uplift? Who do I invest in without needing return? Who do I trust enough to sharpen me? And more importantly, can they trust me the same way? Because leadership isn't about being above people. It's about walking beside them, and sometimes behind them, when they need it most. When trust is present, influence is effortless. Inspiring action, and now where it all converges. Inspiring action, because influence without action is just noise. Your goal as a leader isn't just to make people believe, it's to make them move. You must paint a vision so clear, so magnetic, that it pulls others into motion before fear can grab their feet. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just talk about justice. He described a world where his children would be judged by the content of their character. He gave them a picture. Disney didn't say, "We'll make cartoons." He said, "We're going to build the happiest place on earth." When your vision is vivid, when your words become a mirror of the future they want to live in, they will act. But vision alone isn't enough. You must also challenge, push, encourage. You must ignite what's dormant inside people, the part of them that says, "Yes, I can do this. Yes, I will." Great leaders don't drag people to their potential. They light the path and walk it first. So speak with clarity, act with conviction, live with integrity, because nothing influences more than a life that embodies what it teaches. You want to persuade? Lead. You want to lead? Inspire. You want to inspire? Feel, connect, and move first, before you ever ask others to follow. Because leadership isn't about being in front. It's about going first, into the fire, into the unknown, into the truth, and saying, "Come with me," not because I'm perfect, but because I believe we can go further together. There is a moment in every leader's journey, a quiet reckoning, when the applause fades, the spotlight dims, and the only voice left is the one within. It asks a simple question: what will you do with the influence you hold? Because make no mistake, you influence every single day. With your energy, your words, your silence, your choices, you influence the people who look up to you. You influence those who love you, fear you, trust you, resent you. You influence the future with every step you take. But the real question isn't whether you have influence. The real question is, will you use it with intention, or will you waste it by default? The importance of ethical influence. In a world addicted to noise, where headlines shout louder than wisdom, where likes replace love, and manipulation is disguised as marketing, ethical influence is revolutionary. It is the discipline of restraint, the courage to tell the truth, even when fiction is more profitable, the integrity to inspire without deceiving, to lead without controlling. You see, the greatest danger of influence is the temptation to use it for gain, not good. But real power doesn't crave control. It creates freedom. It liberates people from fear, from confusion, from small thinking. So as your influence grows, as it surely will, remember, you are not here to be worshipped. You are here to awaken others to their own greatness. Like Gandhi, who freed a nation with peace. Like Malala, who stood for girls with only her voice. Like Viktor Frankl, who taught meaning in the shadow of a death camp. They used their influence not to rise above humanity, but to rise within it. That is the standard. That is the legacy. The future of influence. We're standing at a crossroads. The world is changing faster than ever. AI, algorithms, global platforms, deepfakes, echo chambers. Influence today travels at the speed of thought. Your words can cross continents before you even take a breath, which means your intention must move even faster. We are entering an era where everyone is a broadcaster, but few are builders. Builders of trust, builders of movements, builders of truth in a world drowning in noise. In the future, the most influential people will not be the loudest, but the most aligned with purpose, with vision, with values. They will be the ones who know themselves deeply so they can lead others honestly. And in a world full of counterfeit charisma, authenticity will be the ultimate currency. So, sharpen your clarity, strengthen your character, and never forget, your influence is not a weapon. It is a seed. What you plant today will shape the landscape of tomorrow. A call to action. So what will you do with this power? Will you hide from it? Will you chase it carelessly? Or will you rise with reverence and wield it like the torch it is? You don't need millions of followers. You don't need a stage or a spotlight. You don't even need permission. You only need a decision. To influence with honor. To persuade with purpose. To lead not from ego, but from empathy, courage, and conviction. Because somewhere, right now, someone is waiting for your voice, for your story, for your guidance. They don't need a hero. They need a human brave enough to show up fully. And that, my friend, that is you. So led, not someday, now. Start with one conversation, one moment of presence, one courageous truth. Because when you lead with love, when you speak with vision, when you give without agenda, you become unstoppable. You become the kind of leader this world is starving for. Not another influencer, but a true force of influence. And the world will follow, not because you demand it, but because you've become the kind of person worth following.